Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a terrific turnout this morning, I must say. I will try to entertain you a little bit this morning with a riveting subject, economics. I'm not sure it's going to be as interesting as the Coyote Gold Margarita Party, but I shall do my best. But I'm going to start for just a moment and talk a little bit about some of the things we talked about yesterday, but very, very briefly, because the time is limited and you have a lot to do this morning. I am president of the Free Congress Foundation. We are working on policy issues from a conservative point of view. I guess that's no surprise to people here at Steamboat. Our interest is particularly in the growth of the economy. That's our signature issue at Free Congress. We're also interested in some urban issues. I don't think conservatives are going to win any more national elections unless we learn how to address the concerns of people in urban areas. We have done this sometime in the past. We're not doing it so much now, and we have to do that. And the third, national security and foreign policy. And the little debate that we had yesterday afternoon on the NSA, I thought was beginning to get into that topic. But let me go into it very quickly and then move to the main point. This morning's news, if you turn on your television before coming here, is that the Chinese decided to do within 30 meters flying of American aircraft in the South China Sea. It's a very serious matter, very dangerous, but also it pronounces the fact that the Chinese are trying to make a statement to the United States, a very bad statement. You know, I think we all thought that of all these challenges that we've got, the Chinese were maybe the least problematic because of the enormous trading partnership that we have with the Chinese. They have signaled this morning that this is still a very dangerous time, even in the Pacific, as we pivot to the Pacific. But just to recap one more time, look at the news. We have just seen the Israel-Gaza experience that has been gone through. That is continuing to this day. It's very dangerous for Israel and very dangerous to peace in the Middle East. Iran is determined to upset the international order. They're determined to get a bomb. I'm really hopeful that the negotiation that the president is doing right now with the Iranians works. Hopefully there will be a commonality of interest someplace there where we can stop that from happening, because we don't want to be in the choice of saying, well, let them have a bomb and let's try to contain them the way we did the Soviet Union, or negotiate or go to war. And I don't think it's a good thing for this country to be at war with the Iranians, but we can't let them have a bomb. Just simply cannot let them have a bomb. Russia has, since this morning, crossed the Ukrainian border with their trucks. Very dangerous, amazingly dangerous situation, and requires some type of reasonable response, even if it's just an important statement from the presidential leadership of this country. And then, of course, we have the southern border issues. So, look, these are issues that are very serious issues. I wanted to let you know that some of the talking I'm going to do this morning, I do on behalf of myself. As a former Republican governor of Virginia, and this is kind of a Virginia conference. Have you noticed that? I kind of like that. But as a former Republican governor of Virginia, a former chairman of the RNC, I'm going to make a couple of statements. They are not attributable to the Free Congress Foundation, which is a 501c3. And there's been a lot of discussion in this meeting about the Internal Revenue Service. I'm sure they're here in the room right now. Take note of my disclaimer. I have established what I believe to be a reasonable framework that is presently lacking at the national level. You just simply can't make case-by-case, minute-by-minute foreign policy decisions without some sense of where you're trying to go. If you don't have a sense of where you're trying to go, you're going to end up in conflicts and war almost automatically, because you're not thinking. You're not thinking. I believe that our policy for this country ought to be the ultimate triumph of the West, and particularly the United States in the 21st century. Now, why do I say something like that? It's so profound as that. Why do I say that? Because conventional thinking today is that the 21st century will not be an American century. Have you heard that? America's in decline. The 21st century is going to be an Eastern century. I don't believe that that's inevitable. It doesn't have to be that way unless we allow it to happen. I believe that we ought to have a policy that looks ahead at least 5 steps If you're going to take an action in foreign policy and national security, you ought to be able to look ahead and try to understand the consequences, which today we just keep making these case-by-case bases type of things. We ought to have an active foreign policy. It is a mistake for the United States to pull back and to withdraw and to send that kind of message. American leadership in the world today is the only stabilizing influence, and it is our obligation to make sure that we are active on the national security and foreign policy stage. American credibility is a precious resource. If we draw red lines and then don't keep them, then people will be encouraged to push us to further and further withdrawal, as we are seeing on some of the things that I've related this morning. Well, let me move quickly to the point. You can't do any of this in the 21st century. You can't take any kind of credible action as a nation in the world today unless we have a sound and firm economy in the United States, and our number one priority must be the restoration of the American economy. The signature position that I've been taking is that of economic growth. And we have a very serious problem today, ladies and gentlemen. It's not well recognized, but if you believe that investment is what causes people to be employed, we are doing everything in law to stop investment. This past year, we have eliminated all the capital gains write-offs. We have increased taxes on investment all across the board. Tax provision after tax provision is discouraging business people from investing. And it's because of a certain philosophy. Let's just take one example for just a moment. And that's this whole inversion discussion. If you turn on TV, you see the word inversion come up. It's a made-up word. Didn't exist 6 months ago. But it's shorthand for businesses having to go offshore in order to make their money, in order to be able to compete globally. Now, I've been there and done this. I've seen this in business myself. We now compete globally. We don't compete up the street, we compete across the world. And the United States today has the highest corporate tax rate in the world. So what happens? We can't compete. We can't compete with people who are doing business in China and other places like that unless we lower our tax rate. What is the president saying when the issue comes up about companies being driven offshore? His answer is they are unpatriotic. Now, this is not proper. I went on C-SPAN or CNBC just a couple of weeks ago on the Squawk Box show, and Andrew Ross Sorkin confronted me with that and said, don't you think the companies that go offshore to make money are unpatriotic? And I said, a company that invests their money, takes their risks, hires people, manufactures goods and services, and adds to the economy of this nation are patriotic. And I stand by that position this morning. The consequences of where we are today are very serious. Sure, we've seen some recovery that's being touted out there, but the fact is that too many people are still unemployed in this country. Hispanics are unemployed at a much higher rate than the national average. African Americans unemployed at a much higher rate than the national average. Women, particularly single women trying to make a living out there, unemployed at a dramatically much higher rate than the national average. People out there are concerned. Let me give you my really hot button issue. What concerns me the most? Every year, the United States of America renews itself. When our bright young people come out of college with bachelor's degrees and they're excited about starting a career. Don't you know them? You've been them. But you have children that are these people. They come out of college and they want to get started with something exciting. And some are fortunate enough to find something, but too many don't. And as a result of that, they're taking secondary type of employment just as in order to get along until they can get started in their careers. They're falling behind. And as they fall behind, our nation falls behind. And this is why it is a compelling need to do something now. Now, I've established what's called the Growth Code, and I want you to be aware that we put a lot of thought into this of what needs to be done. There are steps that can be taken that will explode growth in this country, and it's not being done. And it needs to be done. The first thing we need to do is to lower this corporate tax rate. We need to get all business people into the same category. all business into the same business category and taxed all alike, whether you're Microsoft or whether you're the person who's doing a startup in this country, all taxed the same. You can get rid of all the special interest loopholes, and you can buy the rate down to 15%, and that's our goal here in the United States of America. Get the rate down on corporate activity. And not just corporate activity, business activity. We've seen it, subchapter S's and types of pass-through types of companies. These things need to be incorporated and treated the same, and you can get the rate down and make us competitive. And we need to change the personal rates as well. In this country, the rates ought to be 25% for the highest, 15% for the middle class, 10% for everybody else, and everybody pays taxes in the United States of America. You can bring money back in from overseas. We should be bringing money back in from overseas at no additional taxes. We ought to be eliminating this horrible scourge of double taxation in this country. What's double taxation? I'll tell you what it is. You work all your life. You pay taxes. You get the residue, what's left over. You put it in the bank. You build it up. And then you die, and they come in and they tax it all over again. The estate tax must go in the United States of America. It's unfair. It's immoral. On the AmericanOpportunity.org webpage, you can find the growth code all hung together, exactly thought through with the economic advisors, and we know it would do the things that are necessary for the United States. But instead, what do we see? We see this determined effort, particularly by the Democrats, in order to try to drive our nation into the wrong direction. What I've explained today and what the program that needs to be done could be done bipartisan. The Democrats could do this too. They could join us in trying to restore this economy, but they won't. And why is that? Well, I think it's because they were weaned on FDR. They were raised on LBJ and the Great Society. They've grown to maturity with Obama and Hillary Clinton and Elizabeth Warren, and they just can't understand what it takes to really drive the economy today. The ability to draw upon the ambition and the excitement of drive and opportunity that's always made America great. So I'll end by just telling you a quick story, if I could. There's a guy by the name of Robert Owen. He was an Englishman. He came over the United States in 1825, and he had an idea. And his idea was he was going to establish an enclave, and he was going to make a new man for the future. And so he started an enclave called New Harmony. It was in Indiana on the Wabash River, and it was going to be a new place where everybody did their work and everybody joined together, and everybody, in accordance to their needs, would take what they needed and would work in accordance to their abilities, and the world would be a better and finer place. It was based upon three principles. Atheism. It was based upon the notion that there would be no ownership of public property, personal property of any kind, real or personal, that all would share together, and that there would be income equality. Now, haven't you heard that today? The president is no longer talking about, and his people are no longer talking about the opportunity of growth and development and wealth in this country. They're talking about the result of income equality. It is the most radical concept that has been injected into the United States since Robert Owen injected it in 1825. Well, you know what happened in New Harmony. You can look it up. I'm not making this up. People on New Harmony, those that worked, were suddenly discouraged because they saw their brothers not working. There are others who were not working that were frustrated because they didn't feel they had anything to do. There were people who wanted to break away and start their own enclave because they wanted to build churches and exercise their faith in God. And so they broke away. And after a while, it collapsed. He went back to England very discouraged. And they said, how come your program didn't work? And what did you call it? And he said, I called it socialism. And he said it didn't work because he found the population of the United States far too undeveloped for the practice of a full and true socialism. Well, I say thank God for the United States of America. So just as yesterday I tried to sound the warning of the challenges that we face and the resources that we will need in order to face this challenge that is with us today, I also wanted to mention to you, talk to you this morning about the economic challenges that we face in this country. We cannot exercise the world role that is necessary for the world order and for true civilization in the 21st century unless our economy is restored. We cannot have a quality of life that is decent and reasonable for the people of this country unless we make it a priority to restore the economy of this country. We know how to do it, we just need the will. But the fact is that I have the absolute confidence in the character of the American people. It was displayed at New Harmony in 1825. It is displayed in the United States of America in the 21st century as well. We are the people who drive and succeed and have ambition and aspirations for ourselves and for our children or for our grandchildren, and it is this motivation, the natural order of free men and women to succeed, that is the quality that we will draw on to be successful and to restore our economy in the 21st century. Thank you very much for the chance to be with you.